happy to introduce to you all Franziska Trautmann. She's a Louisiana native who graduated cum laude from Tulane University with a degree in chemical and biomolecular engineering. During her time at Tulane, she founded Glass Half Full along with her co-founder, Max Stites, in the spring of 2020. While running Glass Half Full, Fran was recognized in Gambas 40 Under 40 and featured on Mike Rowe's reality show, Returning the Favor. Max and Fran were also featured on multiple local news channels, magazines, newspapers, and even the National Weather Channel with Jim Cantore. When not recycling glass, Fran asked me to mention that she loves to walk her dog, who's named Miss Chapatulas. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce Fran, and she's going to tell you all about what they do at Glass Half Full. Thanks, Fran.
Thank you for having me. So I'm Franziska Trautmann. As Mary said, I run Glass Half Full. So we like to call ourselves a community-run glass recycling program right here in New Orleans. So we collect glass and turn it into different products such as sand and cullet, which are larger glass pieces. And I'll go into that a little more, but I'll just share a little bit about our background. So as was mentioned before, I'm one of the co-founders along with Max Stites. These are the different things we do. I run the social media, which I find very fun. So we began in the spring of 2020 because we were super frustrated with the lack of recycling in the city, and specifically glass recycling, especially considering how much we drink in this city and how much Max and I were contributing to that issue during our time in college. So we actually just decided to start a GoFundMe campaign with this idea to recycle glass in New Orleans and turn it into something useful. So that actually ended up taking off, which we were surprised by. It turned out a lot of people were very interested in this and really wanted something like this to happen. So we were pleasantly surprised by that. And that initial $20,000 got us a very small machine. It got us a trailer so we could move the glass around. And it didn't get us enough for warehouse rent. So we actually functioned out of this backyard in the picture for almost 4 months, which was a very small backyard. So by the time June came around after COVID, we finally got our first warehouse, which was uptown on Joliet and Leek, which some of you may have been to. It was a very popular location, but unfortunately we quickly outgrew it, and it was not zoned to be an industrial warehouse, which was what we needed. So we had to move out to the Gentilly area. But this warehouse is 40,000 square feet. It's huge. We're able to build an actual recycling facility here. And this is where we accept glass 3 days a week for drop-off. So that's where anyone can come from anywhere and bring however much glass they want, and we'll recycle it for free. So a little bit about the process of our recycling. So as I said, we collect glass either through those free drop-offs, but we also do pickups for residents as well as businesses. So those are paid pickups, and that really buoys our organization so that we can allow for free drop-offs. And then once we have that glass, we'll pulverize it into sand and cullet, which are the larger glass pieces that you see at the top. And whereas the sand is like towards the bottom right. So we sift it into various sizes, and then we'll utilize either the raw material just as sand, anything you need sand for, sandbags, construction, anything like that, or cullet as an aggregate, or we'll create new products with those materials. So just a little brag, we've actually collected 1 million pounds of glass since we started Glass Half Full. And that's mostly been from just residents. We only just started our business program, which is obviously a lot more glass than your average resident will create, but we really wanted to focus on individuals and how much of an impact individuals can make, especially on recycling. So that's a big statistic that we like to brag about. And then collections, if you're interested, are Monday, Wednesday, Saturday at our Louisa Street location. And like I said, anyone can come. It's free, bring us your glass. You do have to sort it into 3 different colors, but we like to do that so that everyone kind of has a role in the recycling process, so you can understand what goes on the back end when you recycle something. So as for our machinery, like I said, we started out with a little small hand-fed machine that we bought for about $6,000. And we actually recently, like literally last week, upgraded to a machine that can process 2,000 to 4,000 pounds of glass per hour. So that significantly is increasing our output and our ability to recycle. So ideally with this kind of machinery, we'll be able to just keep on increasing how much glass we can recycle. So we're at 1 million now, maybe 2 million by December, you know, and constantly just steadily increase the amount of glass we're getting. Side note about that machine is that we still haven't figured out how to properly wire it. So it's not currently running, but we know it works. We just have to figure out that wiring, and then we'll be able to start crushing 2,000 to 4,000 pounds of glass per hour. So now I'll go into a little bit about our products, what we make and what we do with those products. So one of the main ways we kind of get sand out the door once we create it is through sandbags. So similar to how we saw recycling happen, we were upset with how sandbag distribution was happening. You've probably seen it. The city kind of just dumps a bunch of sand in a parking lot, and then you have to come and shovel it yourself and put it in a sandbag. And we thought it could be done a lot better. We thought they should be pre-made. They should be distributed to people around the city. So in our first hurricane season last summer, we made sandbags and had them available for anyone to come and pick up. And we hope this summer we'll be able to either like deliver that to a nonprofit or hopefully work with the city to be able to distribute it to the most vulnerable in our city who wouldn't be able to drive out to Gentilly and come pick up sandbags or something like that. So that's a big way we use our sand for hurricane season. And then another big source of glass, sand, and cullet is creating new glass products. So the idea for NOLA Alchemy began with the idea to create recycled glass Mardi Gras beads because of all the waste that we see with plastic and all of the CO2 emitted from shipping in all of that plastic into our city every single year, just to toss it into the street and get it stuck in our storm drains or something like that. So we thought there could be a better way, and obviously with all this glass we're producing in the city, there should be something good to put it towards. So the goal with NOLA Alchemy is to create Mardi Gras beads with recycled glass, which can then be recycled over and over again. We're slowly getting there. So our artist, Andrew Barrows, has been making jewelry like you see in these pictures to kind of help us raise money to be able to afford the machinery in order to make glass Mardi Gras beads. We've also partnered with the Red Beans Parade with their project Beanlandia and Bean Coin. They want to make glass Mardi Gras beans to give out, which can then be redeemed at local bars and restaurants. And that's been a really cool project to be a part of with that group of people. And then our main goal, and one of the main reasons we started this, was to be able to utilize the huge amount of glass waste and turn it into sand and then use it to restore our diminishing coastline. So obviously we can't just create sand and then dump it on the coast. It's not just an overnight thing. So we've been working really hard. I have a background in chemical engineering, so I'm kind of the lead scientist on this project, but I am nowhere near an expert. So I'm partnering with actual experts in the field through Tulane, LSU, and other universities as well as Coastal Resilience Office of New Orleans, and other organizations like Pontchartrain Conservancy. So we're actually in the midst of applying for an NSF grant in order to go into phase 1 of testing for using glass sand in coastal restoration. So if we were awarded this grant, we would be partnering with the Pontchartrain Native American tribe and working to rebuild some of the burial grounds that they're losing due to coastal erosion. And then also hopefully build, I always forget what they're called, segmented something, but they're little pieces of land that protect usually lakes from erosion as well. So I'm really excited about that. It's due next week, and we'll likely hear a few months after that whether we get that really big grant, and that involves working with 8 Tulane professors. So that's a really exciting project, and will hopefully get us into that next phase of using all of this waste to do something good. And then for a little bit of background, other states have actually done a lot of this research as well, specifically Florida for dune restoration. But we obviously have a very different coast than Florida. We have marsh, we just have different land. So we have to do our own research to ensure that it's safe for our coast as well. So that's where we're at with that project. And then as far as future products, we've been looking into making soil mixtures, which could also help with our coastal restoration projects. We obviously want to make Mardi Gras beads. This semester, we teamed up with professors and students at Tulane to look into glass faults, which is basically using glass aggregate and sand in place of other aggregate and sand used in asphalt, and how to make that a more sustainable product because it's very energy intensive. We have partnered with the local terrazzo company to make countertops and tables made out of terrazzo with glass pieces in them. We hope to kind of scale up our landscape glass and glass mulch products that we make, which we already make, but hopefully at a larger scale because it involves the very pretty colors like the blues and the greens and things like that. So I always like to talk a little bit about why our model works, because for people who have been in New Orleans for a long time, they've probably seen other projects who have tried to recycle glass, or even the city who tried to recycle glass, and those projects have obviously gone away and are not still here. Many cities across America and the world have stopped recycling glass or never even recycled glass. And we believe that is because a lot of municipalities or organizations believe that in order to recycle glass, you have to turn it into new glass, which is obviously the best way to recycle because it creates a circular economy and it can be endlessly recycled. But we don't think that's the only way. And the issue with that is, number one, there are only so many glass making plants around America. And so in order to get the recycled glass to those plants, you usually have to ship it very far, which is not only costly, but it's environmentally taxing with all the CO2 that you would be emitting in order to ship it. So that's why we try to keep everything locally. So we collect locally and we process locally and we use the products locally. So there's no shipping involved in our recycling process. We don't travel very far to get anything or get anything out. And so that relieves a lot of the burden for us and on the environment. We also think we have been very successful because we're not as focused on profit. A lot of people will say, you know, recycling isn't profitable anymore. You know, that's why no one wants to do it because it's all about making money. And maybe that's true. We're more focused on the importance of recycling and why you should recycle. And so I think that has allowed us to be very successful. And then lastly, community involvement. So we, from the beginning, have been very reliant on amazing volunteers to help us collect the glass, sort the glass, and do various things like that. and also get the word out and get more people involved. I think every time someone starts recycling with us, they tell their friend or their neighbor, and they start collecting their glass for them, or they bring it over. You know, the more people involved, the better. And so I think that has made us very successful as well. And with that, if you want to volunteer with us, it's really fun, I promise. It's mostly just collecting glass from people and getting to know other people who love recycling and are interested in the same things as you and me. So you can go to our website /volunteer and sign up there. And that's about the gist of Glass Half Full. I'd love to kind of open it up to questions and discussion or anything like that. And if you have a more involved question, you can always email me or check our website or social media.
So if anyone has questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask your question directly. If you choose not to do that, then you can put it in the chat and either me or Mary will ask the question. So Roy, did you have your hand up? Do you have a question?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I think what you're doing, Franziska, is just great and outstanding. And thank you for your efforts. I live on the North Shore, and I'm just wondering if it would be possible for you to set up a collection area on the North Shore. Maybe you could communicate with St. Tammany Parish government and arrange for some sort of station for people on this side of the lake to contribute. And I'm sure you would find a lot of people would be willing to do that. Perhaps you could look into that.
Yeah, so we're speaking with two guys from Abita Springs. I don't know how close you are to there, but they're working on getting the funding and logistics together in order to create a drop-off hub over there. But we definitely want to expand and keep expanding because no place in the state recycles glass. So that's definitely our goal. We are working as hard as we can to try to do that and keep expanding. So hopefully soon we'll have some good news for the North Shore.
Thank you.
Great. So Franziska, I had a question about your model. So is there potential, or have you discussed with others for applying your model of local collection, local processing, local distribution to other recyclable materials?
Absolutely. So we're working on creating this model, this general model for cities around the world for glass first, but certainly it can work for other recyclable materials. I mean, we know glass the best. We know what machines you need, you know, what size warehouse, what kind of collection vehicles, but there's no reason it couldn't work for other recyclable materials. But that's definitely the goal, to try to make this a very replicable model so that we can recycle more in America, because we're very behind.
Great, great. And then Nicole wants to know if you are surviving financially.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we survive financially or make money through paid pickups. So that's for residents and businesses. So for residents, it's $25 a month for us to pick up your glass. And then for businesses, it'll depend on how many 65-gallon trash cans they need. But that's essentially how we are making our money, because sand is relatively cheap. We can sell our sand and cullet and products like that. But really the only way we can survive is by making money on the front end as well.
And then I know you accept donations. Did you participate in Give NOLA Day?
Yes. So Glass Half Full is actually an L3C, so it's a hybrid nonprofit for-profit model. But we also founded a nonprofit, Glass Roots, which was on Give NOLA Day.
Okay. Thank you. That's in, for those who aren't looking at chat, she just put the nonprofit link in the chat. Louisette Chris wants to know, how much glass can you recycle? Can you use more than what you are collecting now?
Yeah, that's a good question. As I said, with the new machine, once we actually are able to turn it on, we'll be able to recycle 2,000 to 4,000 pounds an hour, which is much more than we're collecting currently. So yes, we will be able to increase how much we're collecting. And like I said, we've been getting a lot of our glass through residents. So really our aim for this next year will probably be increasing the amount of businesses we're recycling with, because they just go through so much glass. So that'll probably be our goal, to start collecting more through those streams.
Okay, and this is a really great question, because I think many of us have it. So could you walk us through what's required to create a drop-off hub?
Yeah, of course. So first you need a location. So the next location we're looking at is City Park, because they already do compost now collections there. So they already have the infrastructure for example, our bins to be stored if needed, or other, a covering because it rains a lot here. We'll need various things like that. And then besides the location, we'll need parking, the ability for cars to get in and out, because most people are driving to drop off glass. And then we also will have to pay for someone to man the drop off. So we obviously use volunteers, but we always need someone who's trained on our staff to be able to answer questions and oversee drop off and ensure that everything is running correctly and how we like it run. Mm-hmm. And then additionally, we'll have to pay for the cost to transport it from that location to our warehouse, and also the cost to process that glass. So we estimate that with each drop-off event, so for example, one half day at City Park would cost about $250 to transport, plus the labor cost. And those are our estimates right now. And ideally, we would not begin a drop-off unless we had at least a year's worth of funding in order to ensure that it would succeed. Because it's really terrible to have to close a drop-off location like we had to do with Joliet, because people get confused and they don't know, and then glass is left, and it's not ideal. So that's most of the things we would need, I think.
Okay, so Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about what's next.
A couple of questions that I had is, you didn't mention, do people have to sort by color when they drop off?
Correct. Yeah, we sort by 3 main colors when people drop off, and also take off caps, corks, lids, things like that.
Okay, when you say 3 main colors, you mean green, clear, what?
Yeah, green, clear, and then browns and
brown.
mixed.
Okay. Have you all looked, well, actually, a local bar mentioned to me that they were trying to basically be a collection hub for the residents, where they could pay, a business partnership, but provide a hub location. Have you approached other businesses about that, or was that something they approached you about?
Yeah, we haven't approached any businesses about that, because we would not exactly wish that upon anyone. It's a very hard job to keep up with, but we commend the bars and other places that are doing it. I believe Faubourg Winery is doing it for their customers, and maybe Barrel Proof, a few bars that we pick up from, are allowing their customers to bring it. But yeah, that's amazing, and we love the bars and restaurants who want to do that and make recycling more accessible.
And do you expect them to have, be able to color sort there?
No, bars and restaurants do not have to color sort.
Okay. I've spent a lot of time in West Virginia, and all of the glass factories up there used to collect glass from residents. And given that we have several local glass works, have you all tried to set up any kind of partnership with them to use your product?
Yeah, so the issue with glass blowers That's what you're referring to, right?
Uh-huh.
Like glass artists. Yeah. So we work with one, but there are very few artists that work with recycled glass because it is a much more difficult glass to work with because it's already been heated and cooled and formed. So you have to have a lot of experience in glassworks and working with specifically recycled glass to be able to form it correctly and how you want it. So many glass artists won't touch recycled glass.
And the ones that are using it to make like jewelry, like your Valentine's heart that you all did, that's somebody that's just working with recycled glass for a specific jewelry product?
Our artist, Andrew, he actually, he mostly works with recycled glass, but he does use other glass, new glass or soft glass as they call it as well, because it has a wider range of colors. Recycled glass only has specific colors due to cost, usually.
There were a couple other questions that had come up to me.
Renee has a question, Mary. Can I call on him?
Yeah. In the meantime, yes, on the residential pickup, how often do you come and do you go throughout the whole city? How far out do you go?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So we're servicing all of Orleans except the French Quarter. That includes Algiers. And then we're also servicing Metairie currently, but constantly expanding. Hope to continue expanding, maybe even to the North Shore. And we collect once a month.
There was something that I wanted to mention to you, to mention to the membership. I noticed when I went to a Google search for you, they still have your Joliet Street address. They don't mention the Louisa Street address, although your website has got the Louisa Street. I think that's an important thing to maybe correct somehow so people can find you a little bit more easily. And there was
Google keeps undoing us closing it, but we'll keep at it. I know that's confusing.
All right. And there was something else. I'm a biologist, so I find it very interesting in terms of, the granting and the chemical testing you're having to do to get your glass product used in coastal restoration. Could you talk a little bit about what they're testing for and what are possible pros and cons to using the recycled glass?
Yeah, of course. So some pros that we found so far is that traditional river sand is actually a little too fine for restoration because it'll often just wash away. So that's the good thing about glass, is that it's bigger, more amorphous pieces, so it won't wash away as easily. Things that we have to test include natural plant growth, microbial interactions with those plants, ensuring that that is up to par as it is with dredged sand that's usually used for restoration. We're also looking into using or adding chemicals in order to accomplish bioremediation, so possibly removing oil from the water that we put this sand in. So not just restoring the coast, but also improving the water around it. So that's a piece to the project. And then also exploring how it could work combining dredged sand with glass sand, because we have a sort of shortage on those larger pieces of dredged sand that are needed for coastal restoration. So if we could mix the finer dredged sand with the larger glass pieces and have the same effect or a better effect, then so many of our state's coastal projects could be sped up 10 times. And that's also something that would be more important, because just at glass half full, we can't keep up with the sand needed to, restore our coastline, obviously. So if we could just supplement what's needed, that would be the ideal scenario.
Mhm.
And
we're also testing fish, fish as well. Yeah.
With the sand product?
Yes, so ensuring that the issue with fish is that if the material is too fine of a material is used, then it'll cloud the water and affect their breathing. So determining what level sand is needed for the fish to be happy.
And will your new machine be able to, I guess, regulate the grain size?
That's a good question. So a standard size is spit out of the machine, and then from there we can sift. So get whatever size we need with a sifter or a sieve.
Okay. And you don't know any specific chemicals that they're testing for, do you?
I do not. No, I should.
I'm curious. I really am. Those are all the big questions that I had. Janelle, did we have any other questions that had appeared in chat?
No, there are no more chat questions.
Fran, can you think of anything else that you really want to share with people to make sure that they know all there is to know about you all and how they could maybe volunteer?
Yeah, we could always use volunteers to help with drop off. So I can put it again, just so everyone has it. And then I think I saw that Roy had a question.
Yeah, Fran, I was just wondering if you all had ever contacted the Corps of Engineers, who is very much involved in coastal restoration and might use your product.
Yes, yeah. They're definitely someone we will collaborate with probably a little more down the road once we get the initial testing out of the way to prove, yes, it can work. And then we'll partner with the Army Corps. I think that's kind of the goal, but it probably wouldn't hurt if anyone knows someone in the Army Corps.
That's true. And you don't want to give any kind of specifics in terms of what kind of volunteer people you're looking for them to do what kind of tasks?
Oh, sure, yeah. So volunteers help with collection and the free drop off. So you'll help sort, bring in glass for other recyclers, take off caps and corks, things like that, answer any questions recyclers might have. And that's at our Gentilly location on Louisa Street on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturdays. And then tips on preparing your glass, cleaning, removing lids. Labels can stay on. You just have to remove the caps, lids, corks, but we will recycle those caps, lids, and corks at our facility as well. So you can bring them with you. And then, like I said, you separate into three main colors: clears, browns, and green. And then if you have any blue, let us know, because we love blue. I think that's it. And thank y'all for having me. This was awesome. Y'all are very active, and I love all the questions.
I had one more question, Fran. At City Park, have you started talking to the new CEO about this?
Yes, Meg, I believe, or I've been talking to Meg, not the CEO, I think.
Okay.
And they're ready when we are, essentially. So once we secure the funding, we'll be able to start that.
That would be great. That really would. Oops, I think Renee's got a question for you.
What do you do with the caps? How do you recycle those?
So the metal caps, any metal, aluminum, anything like that, we'll take to EMR to recycle. The corks we compost, and then the plastic tops we actually sort and give to artists who use them in their work.
So I have one more question for you, Fran. This is from Andrea. She wants to ask neighbors to save their glass, and she says it sounds like an unmanned trash can is not a good idea. Any tips?
Yeah, I do not recommend unmanned trash can. Many people come to our facility who have done that, and they're like, my neighbor gave me all this glass and it's dirty and all the caps are on it, you know, and then we can't take it. So then they're having to deal with it. So maybe going to them and picking up, or just saying, you know, at this certain hour, you can bring it to me, just so you can double check that they're following all the rules so that you're not left to deal with it. I also think, you know, maybe having an agreement where you bring it 1 month and then someone else brings it the next month, so it's not always on you, because that can get overwhelming. But overall, great job, and I support it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Fran, for your time, and we appreciate it. So Mary, once Fran leaves, did you have other things that you wanted to talk to the group about?
Actually, I went through my list. I think those are the main things that I wanted to mention.
All right, so Fran is going to leave us, but if anybody else,
Thank
thank you, Fran. If anybody else had any tips on your recycling, if you wanted to share with the group, you're welcome to do that now.
One thing I did want to mention is, of course, in Orleans Parish, we're fortunate to have curbside. But that last thing that Fran just mentioned about people not following the rules is kind of frustrating, because one person not following the rules can mess up a whole load. So it is important for you to know about, if you've got curbside or if you go to a facility that recycles, to find out what their rules and regulations are. Like in Orleans Parish, we used to be able to recycle plastics 1 through 5, but about a year ago, very quietly, they switched to only plastics 1 and 2. So if you weren't paying attention, basically you could end up having a lot of waste, them having to throw away whole loads because you weren't being aware of what you needed to do. Things like milk cartons, they prefer that you rinse them and leave the caps on. And for years I was taking the caps off. I thought they didn't want that. So just little things about learning the rules and regulations are real important. And that rinsing, it's amazing. When we used to recycle at Ben Franklin, the kids would have to, at the end of the week, they'd have to go through all the recycling containers and clean things out and throw away the trash. And it was just a mess. People need to realize it's not a garbage collection, it's a recycling collection. And I'm sure some of you all have had similar experiences. I was curious about those of you all that live in other areas of the city. What is being done in terms of recycling?
Well, in Jefferson, we're allowed to recycle plastics and cardboard and those wax cartons, like orange juice cartons and such, but no glass.
And that's unincorporated Jefferson. So
Correct.
I live in
Right.
Harahan, so there is no recycling in
Yeah,
Harahan.
we live in River Ridge and they recycle here, and that's unincorporated. What about Kenner? Does anybody know about Kenner?
I don't know.
Mary, I live in Orleans and I recycle regularly. I go down to Elysian Fields. Do you have any idea what they do with the glass and the plastic and the paper?
No, I don't. And that's a very good question. Janelle and I were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
And I will admit, at one point many years ago, when other facilities were doing recycling, I actually went out to their recycling facilities and watched what happened to the loads of stuff. And I have not followed a recycling truck in Orleans. And that probably would be something very worthwhile to do. I hate to say that, but it does make you wonder. Because I know that, like our plastic waste, we used to have a place to send that to China. But nowadays they're not collecting like they used to. So it does make you wonder where exactly it's going. Good question. I'll see what I can find out.
Okay, that's great. Thanks.
And Jacqueline says the city recycles everything but glass in Hammond. Linda says there's nothing in St. Bernard. So.
I will say, if anyone's interested in recycling candles, like glass, the glass from the candles, a glass half full will take them, but you have to clean them really effectively. And I found if I put them in the freezer, I can like get that last little bit of wax out, because the wax from the candle will gum up their machines. But if you get it clean, they're happy to take it. And so that's one of the things I've started doing, like as I have candles, the glass part, I just clean it out and put it in the freezer for a couple minutes, and then it's easier to get the wax out.
The trick
But-
I've always used is running hot water in them. Getting
Yeah,
the,
that works as well.
Soft and then chopping it out from there. That works.
Yeah.
Hello. I have a couple of stories I can share with you about different communities that I've lived in regarding recycling. One was in Loyalsock Township in near Williamsport, Pennsylvania, years ago. The township thought it was be a good idea that in addition to trash pickups, which was private at the time, they would issue about 6 or so 5-gallon buckets, black buckets, and the purpose of which was to sort out glass and cans and those types of things. But and so it was marginally successful in that people started using those for those buckets for everything other than recycling. You'd see them everywhere. So they found that it was a lot more, useful to have a central location. So they chose a public location where the owners agreed to have these large bins moved in. And so it was one of the busiest places on a Saturday morning because people brought their cardboard in, their glass was brown, clear, green glass, cans, and aluminum. And that worked really well. It was kind of messy. Sometimes they were just packed full and you couldn't even get, and there was lines of people going in there. It was pretty successful. The other place was Elkins, West Virginia, where I lived. And there used to be a fellow that goes around with a van, a good sized van truck. And he would show up at this little park area every Wednesday, and people would bring their bottles. Now the cans, we had a central location for cans and boxes and those types of cardboard and paper, but not for glass. So glass was a real problem getting rid of there. So this fella came along every Wednesday and he would be there for you. And we used to go down there all the time and we didn't have to sort it out because we sorted out as we brought it in. He had several containers there. But that got to be a problem because people didn't always come on a Wednesday. They dropped their glass off on any day of the week and it became a real mess and the neighbors got really angry, and so that ended that. So the county or the city of Elkins was rather in a quandary, and it forced them to set up in an old abandoned center that they had there. I think it was a wastewater treatment plant that was defunct. And so set up these bins, and now people are using them for glass, and it's great. You can just pull up and you can just play basketball with the bottles and toss them in to the different containers. So that works. So those are success stories. And I think the central location, been my experience, getting into the central locations where people can go at any time they want to and just being able to put them in there rather than trying to pick them up. Picking them up is going to be really expensive. I don't know if Fran's still on the line, but that's seems to be the way to go that I've seen in terms of community, how they dealt with it.
Well, I think the problem you cite, Bill, is why they had to close the Joliet Street drop-off location, because the neighbors,
Yeah.
it was very awkward for the neighbors. There was not space for people to park, and people would leave the glass
Right.
when the station wasn't open.
And in terms of the, the residential pickup that Fran was talking about, again, people are paying for that residential pickup. So you're going to get people that are interested in it and that are willing to follow the rules. The problem that we potentially have is, with curbside, is that you're giving these containers to people that maybe do not have a commitment to recycle. And one, use the container for something entirely different, which we've seen in our neighborhood, or just don't follow the rules, put in wrong kind of plastic, don't rinse things out, that kind of thing. And that's a problem. That is, and
Yeah.
education is the answer, but even when you teach it at school, sometimes the kids don't do it. So if somebody knows the magic formula to that, please share with me. I'd love it.